A short time ago, the United States military began major combat operations in Iran. This terrorist regime can never have a nuclear weapon. I'll say it again. They can never have a nuclear weapon. Ladies and gentlemen, after Iran attacked the Middle East, the Western media has painted Iran as an evil country. The United States and Israel has launched a dramatic airstrike campaign targeting Iran. And Iran has responded with fire across the wider Middle East. Iran's supreme leader is dead, one of the most evil people in history. Our objective is to defend the American people by eliminating imminent threats from the Iranian regime, a vicious group of terrible people. In fact, the Western media has convinced the world that Iran funds terrorists, Iran is building a nuclear bomb, and Iran is pushing the world at the edge of war. An axis of evil. Iran has been a very dangerous player. They're a nation of terror. A radical Iranian regime that wants to build atomic bombs to destroy anyone and everywhere in the world. All of this is partially true. But you know what? Once America and Iran were actually best friends. The same America that calls Iran a terrorist nation practically gifted nuclear technology to Iran. The same America that wants to destroy Iran once ran its entire economy on Iranian oil. Iran is an island of stability in one of the more troubled areas of the world. Until in the 1970s, Iran became America's strongest ally in the Persian Gulf. The United States saw in Iran as a very important partner for energy. Americans and Iranians were experiencing a love affair. I do not remember any request we made of him that he refused. So the question is, when America and Iran were such good friends, how did they turn into enemies today? How does America's hypocrisy come to light in the story? And what should we learn from this ugly geopolitical conflict? Before we move on, this is a story that dates back to 1950s. By this time, World War II had just ended and the world's biggest superpowers realized two things. Number one, the country that controls the supply of oil will rule the world. So oil equal to power. Number two, whichever country has a nuclear bomb, that country will always be safe. So nuclear weapon is the key to protection. So all the powerful countries, Russia, China, France, UK, and America, all of them developed and tested their nuclear weapons. Now in this race, while Russia had both its own oil and its own nuclear bomb, on the other side America and its allies had the bomb, but they did not have oil. So American and British companies went searching for oil all across the world. That is when America and Iran became best friends, because America found the third largest oil reserve in Iran. Now America wanted two things from Iran: oil and territory. Oil so that American factories and armies could function. Territory because Iran was right next to the USSR. So America was afraid that if they didn't build a relationship with Iran, the USSR might establish control over Iran. And this friendship between Iran and America was so deep that the Shah of Iran was given a royal treatment in the US. American movies were played in Iranian cinemas, and even women in Iran used to walk around in American outfits. In fact, back then, Iranian cities practically looked like American cities. Now, the rules of this relationship were pretty simple. Iran would give America cheap oil and America would give Iran cash, weapons, and nuclear technology. So the question is, if America and Iran were such good friends, then how did these two countries suddenly become enemies today? And more importantly, why did America attack Iran and kill Kini? Well, behind this is a painful story of geopolitics. And shockingly, this painful story began with a party. Yes, with a party. When Iran and America were great friends in the 1950s, Iran became one of the fastest growing countries in the world. Until the 1950s and 60s, the world felt like Iran was becoming a modern superpower. Their GDP grew by 8 to 9%. Highways and skyscrapers were being built. Massive businesses were emerging. And Thran looked like an American city with American cars, fashion shows, and shopping malls. But strangely, all of this was a grand illusion. Why? Because on one side, while the rich people of Iran were busy partying and shopping, the condition of the poor people of Iran was so bad that half of them did not have electricity. Inflation was rising rapidly, unemployment was very high, and there was widespread hunger in several parts of Iran. So in short, while rich people were having fun, the life of the common people was terrible. And whatever Iran earned from its own oil, 80% of it went to Western companies and 20% went to the Iranian government. So if you look at it from the Iranian people's perspective, Americans were getting rich with Iranian oil. Iranian elite were getting richer with Iranian oil. But the common family in Iran was still struggling for food. But you know what? Amidst this terrible condition, the Shah of Iran threw a party so grand that it broke the country of Iran. In the middle of October 1971, 62 heads of state converged on the airport of the fairy tale city of Shiraz. This is the story of the most expensive party the world has ever seen. The Shah invites guests to a traditional Persian party. While the general population was struggling to make ends meet, the Shah was throwing a party for his rich friends. Everyone and everything was there. But if there were something missing from the party, then it was the Iranians themselves. This party was hosted by the Shah of Iran to celebrate 2,500 years of the Persian Empire. It was so grand that kings, emperors, presidents, and prime ministers from all over the world landed in private jets. 18,000 kilos of food flew in from Paris. 25,000 vintage wine was imported from Paris. And the craziest part was that tons of ice were imported from Europe by military planes just to keep the wine cool. And you know what? To make the desert feel like a garden, the Shah of Iran flew in 15,000 trees and tens of thousands of flowers all the way from Europe. Now, do you realize the madness? While the people of Iran were starving, the Shah of Iran spent $100 million on a party. $100 million in 1971 is equal to $800 million today, or $72,000 crores today. And you know what? Not only were the ordinary people of Iran not invited to the party, they were also deliberately and forcefully kept as far away from the party as possible. Now think about it from a poor farmer's perspective in Iran. In your village, you don't have food to eat due to a drought. Your family is not able to afford medicines. Your children are dying of hunger. But the Shah of Iran is importing 18,000 kilos of food from Paris and is throwing it in the dustbin. My question is, how would you feel? You will feel angry, right? Well, that is how a revolution picked up in Iran, and gradually by 1979, it became so powerful that the people of Iran overthrew the Shah of Iran. This rebellion was led by a man named Ayatollah Khomeini, who then became the supreme leader of Iran. Revolutionary forces under the leadership of Grand Ayatollah Khomeini forced the Shah of Iran into exile. It was the people all over Iran who chose Khomeini, who wanted him as leader. Now, as soon as Khomeini came to power, Khomeini took 3 decisions that turned America into Iran's enemy. The first decision was to turn Iran into an Islamic Republic. So as soon as he took charge, Khomeini removed democracy, established autocracy, and established Sharia law. Secondly, a few months later, the Iranian students attacked the American embassy in Thran, and they took 52 Americans hostage, and that too for 444 days. And surprisingly, Khomeini openly supported this attack. And thirdly, Khomeini led all contracts with the American and British oil companies and asked them to get out of Iran. And he openly said that Iran will own and sell its own oil. In fact, Khomeini was so anti-America that he shut down all nuclear reactors sent by Americans and suspended all Iranian nuclear scientists who worked with America. So, Iran basically had no interest in making a nuclear bomb. But after this disaster, America got so angry that they practically decided to ruin Iran. You know what they did? They froze $12 billion of Iranian assets in America. And America gave money and weapons to Saddam Hussein so that he could launch an attack on Iran to start the deadly Iran-Iraq War, which lasted for 8 long years. In September 1980, Iraq invades Iran. Iraqi leader Saddam Hussein is convinced that now is the time to strike. The conflict will last 8 years, cost hundreds of thousands of lives, threaten world oil markets. It's the last total war of the 20th century. In an expansionist adventure, Iraq aimed to establish itself as a Gulf power by neutralizing its closest rival, Iran. And this war killed 5 lakh people and ruined the economy of both Iraq and Iran. Now think about this. America was such a cunning country that when Saddam Hussein was attacking Iran, America was patting his shoulder and said goodbye. They gave him money, weapons, and information. But as soon as Saddam waged a war against Kuwait to control their oil well, America got 30 countries together to save Kuwait and destroy Iraq. Finally, in 2006, Saddam Hussein was publicly hanged with the support of the U.S. Hypocrisy. Now, if you think about the situation from Iran's perspective, America deliberately crippled their economy. They funded their enemies to attack them. And whenever a leader like Gaddafi or Saddam Hussein went against the US, America hunted them down. And by the way, America has changed the regime in approximately 100 countries until so far. Now you will be able to understand Iran's fear. In 1984, Iran activated all its scientists and researchers and started its preparations to build a nuclear bomb. But whenever Iran tried to complete its nuclear program, Israel and the US came together to destroy them. And by the way, Israel is also not wrong because the supreme leader of Iran has openly said so. Israel is also not wrong to stop Iran from having a nuclear weapon. And look how America has surrounded Iran. In the West after 2003, the US sanctioned 1.5 lakh troops in Iraq near Iran's border. Then in the East in Afghanistan, 1 lakh troops and fighter jets were kept ready. And then in the South, the US Navy's 5th Fleet from Bayan had taken control of the Persian Gulf. And then in the far west, Israel has 90 suspected nuclear bombs. And now even Saudi Arabia and UAE stand with the US. So Iran has been under enormous threat from all its sides. But even after this, Iran told America that they will stop their nuclear program if America promises to remove all sanctions. So in 2015, Barack Obama removed the sanctions from Iran, and in return, Iran actually stopped nuclear enrichment. So everything was just about to get fine. But then in 2018, Donald Trump can lead all the deals and impose sanctions on Iran again. President Barack Obama's administration negotiated a deal with Iran's President Hassan Rouhani. It limited Iran's nuclear facilities in return for sanctions relief. But not everyone saw it as a success. Never ever in my life have I seen any transaction so incompetently negotiated as our deal with Iran. So then Iran said, to hell with the US, now we will build a nuclear bomb. And this building of nuclear bomb has become the root cause of today's conflict. This is the story from Iran's perspective. They were looted, betrayed, and attacked. And when Iran extended a hand of peace, America betrayed Iran and forced them to build a nuclear weapon. And that is the root cause of the conflict today. So do you realize this story proves that in this ruthless world of geopolitics, there are no permanent friends or enemies, only permanent interests. While the West sees a dangerous rogue state building a nuclear weapon, Iran sees itself building an unbreakable shield against decades of betrayal and regime changes. And the terrifying question now is whether this relentless cycle of paranoia and revenge will end in a diplomatic handshake or a catastrophic world war. So now you decide who is right and who is wrong. That's all from my side for today, guys. If you learned something valuable from this case study, please hit the like button to support our work. And for more such geopolitical case studies, please subscribe to our channel. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.